Hey guys, we need to talk about how the Bears cannot afford to lose out in the Ben Johnson sweepstakes. First of all, thank you for your support so far. Like and subscribe. So let's get right into it. This week, as I mentioned in my video yesterday, the coaching search is going to speed up. And the Lions losing on Saturday night to the Washington Commanders has accelerated the coaching process because Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, their offensive and defensive coordinators, are now available, as is Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, and we're going to get into him in just a second. So if you're the Bears or the Jaguars or the Raiders or the Saints or the Jets or any team out there with coaching vacancies, this thing is going to get wrapped up, in my opinion, in the next 2, conservatively 3 weeks. I think we're going to know pretty much where all of these coaches are going to go. So right now, the Bears and the Raiders, and I guess to a lesser extent the Jaguars, are battling it out for Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. And the Bears seemingly should be in the best position to get him. They have the attractive young quarterback. They have salary cap space. They have a roster that is better than what the Raiders have. But right now, Tom Brady, who is a 5% owner in the Raiders, is an active executive for the Las Vegas Raiders and is putting the full court press on Ben Johnson. Now, I could be totally wrong on this, but the Ben Johnson to the Raiders thing has never really passed the smell test for me, because you look at the roster, it's awful. They'd have nothing there other than Max Crosby and Brock Bowers and a few other nice pieces. The cupboard's bare, and the quarterback's position is a nightmare. Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, they don't have a quarterback. So you're telling me that Ben Johnson would sit out 2 consecutive coaching cycles, turn down jobs in Carolina and Washington, back-to-back years, just to go to the Raiders? Like, I get Tom Brady is clearing the deck, and they fire their general manager, Tom Telesco. More on that in a second. So he would get likely his choice of who his general manager would be. He'd be able to build everything kind of new and up from the ground, but it doesn't pass the smell test. However, let's just say for a second I'm wrong, and he does go to the Raiders. It would be irrecoverable for the current Bears ownership group. Not that fans are ever going to trust them again anyway, after that article by Kalen Kaler of ESPN talking about how they have a bunch of non-football people basically lending their team out to a shadow general manager and agent Trace Armstrong. And I've talked about in the past how they've handed their hiring processes over to old general managers who aren't in the building. That's embarrassing enough. But the reason that I say that this would be even more embarrassing is because following the season, Bears brass had a press conference. President Kevin Warren, he said, this is going to be the most coveted job this cycle in the league. This is point blank period. Coveted job. This one right here. If they fucking lose to the Raiders. And then to make matters worse, there's George McCaskey, the chairman of the Bears, who was asked about the organizational alignment, something that I've talked about with Ben Johnson for months now. He thinks it's important that head coach and general manager are on the same page. And this was the response given by George McCaskey when asked whether it would be a smart thing to do to either give Ryan Poles a contract extension or whether head coach and general manager being on the same timeline is important. Quote, "I don't think so," McCaskey responded. "In the interviews that I've participated in, that has never been a factor. No one has ever come in and said, I'm not going to come here unless the general manager and I are on the same timeline. So I don't think that's going to be a factor." Well, if Ben Johnson goes to the Raiders, that's the entire factor. What other factors would there be? Quarterback? No, the Bears have the better situation. And I love prior to the NFC North going 0 for in the playoffs, everybody's like, oh, well, much rather go to the AFC West than the NFC North so you could play the best quarterback of all time twice a year, and Justin Herbert twice a year, and Jim Harbaugh, and Sean Payton and Bo Nix twice a year? No, I disagree wholeheartedly with that. I think that even as difficult as the NFC North is, the quarterback play is not to the same level as the AFC West. So it would entirely be Tom Brady getting Ben Johnson to take a leap of faith and say, you're going to be able to pick your general manager. You're going to be able to build this thing exactly the way that you want to. And basically proving that George McCaskey is so out of touch and has absolutely no understanding of how these searches work, about why coaches in the past haven't taken the job, and basically have any understanding of anything at that point. That quote is going to come back to bite him in the ass so badly if Ben Johnson goes to the Raiders. Now, let's just say that that does happen. Ben Johnson goes to the Raiders, and the Bears have to find another head coach. Yeah, there's going to be frustration, but to me, I think they should go talk to Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator from the Baltimore Ravens, instead of hiring Mike McCarthy. Hiring Mike McCarthy would be the comfortable status quo choice, and as we've established, the status quo sucks. Inside that building, the status quo doesn't work. The status quo has you losing out on coaches to the fucking Las Vegas Raiders who've had 14 coaches since 2000. The status quo is not winning a playoff game in 14 years. So hiring the guy, the retread from the Dallas Cowboys, who isn't going to want to ruffle feathers, and he's going to be okay with taking on Ryan Poles as his general manager, who, oh, by the way, his first move, let's not forget this, Ryan Poles' first move was picking Matt Eberflus over Dan Quinn. If only the Bears had the coaching staff of the Washington Commanders. It's not like they could have picked Dan Quinn for their head coach over Matt Eberflus. Oh, wait. It's not like they could have picked Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator over Shane Waldron. Oh, wait. That's the status quo. So Todd Monken of the Ravens, who won back-to-back national titles as the offensive coordinator at Georgia, and has come in and really revitalized the Ravens offense and is adaptable. He's worked with Brandon Weeden when he was at Oklahoma State. He's worked with Jake Fromm and Stetson Bennett, and now he's working with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. This is a guy who can work with any quarterback and make any quarterback successful. And he's a little irascible. He uses the F word quite a bit, and I know the Bears brass doesn't like that, which is why there's almost no chance that he gets hired. I hate to say it. I hope I'm wrong. If they don't get Ben Johnson, the process of them picking Todd Monken would at least show that they're trying to do something different than the past, than what's comfortable, that they're trying to admit their faults and not just keep going with the same broken building that has rotted the entire franchise over the past decade plus. Let's see what they do. This is going to be a very big week, and I know, first off, don't respond to every little report that you see. Take everything with a grain of salt and understand that there are leverage games being played. That's why this whole Ben Johnson to the Raiders thing still, to this day, I'm like, I will believe it when I see it. If I see it, I'm happy to eat crow, and I will do it right here on this podcast. But anyway, thanks again. Like and subscribe. Talk to you guys later.